and welcome to Label Sessions Presents, the podcast where we talk to the most interesting people about all the things you need to know in the world of innovation, business, design, tech, and culture. I'm Fuzlin Esau, and today we're joined by two new label mates, as well as Nick Sherrard and Josh Nixon from the Label Sessions team. Quick welcome, hello and welcome to Vicki Joshi, a champion of the outside-in customer-first approach who has worked across insurance, financial services, tech, consumer brands, aligning product, service, and teams to truly meet customer needs. Welcome, Vicki. Also, a big welcome to Patricia Lorton, who has worked across some of Europe's most complex industrial environments in both legacy and emerging sectors to turn abstract sustainability ambitions into tangible, measurable outcomes for improving environmental performance as well as business resilience. Gen Alpha is growing up fully digital and is considered the first truly digital generation. And they're also monetizing themselves earlier than any generation before. And we're seeing brands, especially beauty brands, that are rushing to adjust to this new era of kidfluencers. At the same time, we're seeing millennials and Gen Z still living at home, well into their 30s. Is this early hustle a much needed entrepreneurial energy, or is it something more complex? Is Gen Z's early self-monetization a sign of healthy ambition or a worrying acceleration of adult pressures?
It's a very good question, and I'm not sure I've got the answer to that specifically. I think it is part of this is they have access now to platforms that allow them to monetize themselves far younger than they've ever had before. And I'm not saying it's easy, because I'm sure it's not easy. I imagine being a content creator takes a lot of effort, a lot of time. But there's just something about being able to do that where you are, wherever you are, at a time that fits you. And that is very of that generation. You know, they like things that are sort of very immediate. They want to be able to do things that they can share with other people. So I think I'm equally worried as much as I am impressed, frankly. I think it absolutely, like you say, on the beauty industry is working really hard to keep up with the influence of the kind of kid influencers that are out there at the moment. It will be really interesting to see as they grow older and as they have more, I guess, influence because they've got more financial influence on the world, whether their behaviours start to change or they remain as they are today. And that just becomes how that new generation interacts with each other, interacts with the brands that they want to purchase from. I think the big challenge for a lot of brands is understanding them. Because if I think about it from a financial services perspective, if in the next 15 years, the kids that are earning lots of money now by doing all of the content and being an influencer are then going to start to think about, okay, well, you know, they want a house or I don't think the financial services industry is ready for that generation to grow up and start demanding of the financial services industry the types of products and services that they are going to expect of us. So I think it's one thing that the beauty industry is working really hard to keep up with it. I think, you know, utilities, financial services, there's a whole host, you know, travel, there's a whole host of other industries that I think need to start to think really carefully about how they look at this segment of society, this group of future consumers now, so that even if they might not be purchasing their products and services today, and it might be 10, 15 years down the line, they understand them enough so that they can be innovating quick enough to deliver the right products and services when the time comes for them to buy. So I think I'm equally impressed. I think it's admirable. I think it's absolutely down to the fact that they've also got, this is just the world that they live in and they've got the chance. But from a brand perspective outside of the beauty industry, I think it's going to take a hell of a lot of work to be able to get to understand this new generation of consumers that are going to be coming to us very soon.
Yeah. Like you, Vicki, I am not really specialized into that specific topic, but digitalization is an essential pillar of sustainability because we need to deal with quite a lot of data. And to secure that we are going into the right direction and we make informed decision, we definitely need digitalization. Now, to the aspect of this new generation and adaptation of value proposition, this is, I would say, a sectorial aspect of it. It may not be valid for each and every one. But sustainability needs to be adaptive. And so therefore, value proposition can adapt along with sustainability. So this is one of the things that I may point out. Now, how the new generation will adapt to future models and as well industries and other sectors. So this one, for me, at the moment, it's very difficult to answer how they will behave in the future. But again, the world and we will follow for sure. We will adapt.
And adaptive, I guess, both in is just understanding that world, I guess, because also even on a kind of sustainability standpoint, one of the things we saw from recent weeks and sanctions, or not sanctions, but tariffs on China from America, was you realize that your suppliers have got smartphones too. So in their case, that was like calling out things that they could make in different ways. It's going to be the same all the way through chains, which is like actually it used to be even relatively recently that some things could happen in your supply chain and not that many people would know. Whereas it's kind of like it's much less the case now. It's going to be public at least for a little while. I think there's a couple of things on this quickly. I mean, one, I think Vicki's point is really important, just in terms of this is a new economy that's coming up. The fact that you can, we kind of, if you're to your point in terms of mortgages and such, like we ask for a deposit to prove that you can afford a house. When someone's already got an audience on a social platform, it gets kind of strange that we're asking for that as an evidence point. There's something interesting around that. Although I just think the one note of caution maybe around this, which is, recent weeks we saw Unilever saying their big pillar of their marketing strategy is to go out to influencers. I just wonder if there's not, again, some element of accountability there, because we know quite a few influencers through a thing at Label Sessions, and I've met quite a few of them. Because fundamentally, being online that much isn't very healthy. We kind of know that increasingly. I just wonder at what point someone says, where's the accountability in some of this, in terms of how much do you look at, is an influencer not someone that you have some duty of care towards? And is there not something beyond, when sports brands sponsor an athlete, it's no longer the case that something happens in their life and you just drop them. That used to happen 15 years ago. They got injured and you just drop them because people kind of got to a point where we're like, they might not be employees, but you've kind of got a commercial partnership there and there's some accountability there. I just wonder what happens on the influencer side when you get to that point.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, Nick. I think that's where brand purpose, brand values, and individual values come into play really strongly. So, I've worked with a number of different influencers and sports personalities, etc. In my career, and typically what you're looking for is somebody that absolutely the values align with the organizational values, but also with the values of your team and how you want to run things and how you're going to treat each other. It's a partnership. Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree. There's an element of, a duty of care when you're working with some of these people and making sure that you're not expecting them or asking them to do things that you think are beyond the line of, good for their well-being, mm-hmm. etc. But I also think there's this, if we're talking back about this new Generation Alpha, I think the lines that they think are good for them and bad for them in terms of their online consumption are going to be very, very different to the lines that I would personally have for myself. Mm-hmm. So I think, again, it's going to be about listening. It's going to be about understanding the individuals or whoever it is that you're working with from an influencer perspective, understanding what their boundaries look like and what they are comfortable and not comfortable with doing, and making sure as a brand and as a partner that you are respectful of those, and that you are doing everything you possibly can to make sure that, in any contract, you've got all of that stuff around, you're going to do this, we're going to give you that. I think that organisations need to go a little bit further and be really clear on what they're not going to do as well, and what they're not going to, they're not going to ask people to do. So from my perspective, I think it's going to be about having a sort of one-on-one contract, understanding each other, understanding the individual boundaries, and then making it work to the best of your ability. But yeah, you do have a duty of care, but I think that duty of care comes from starting from a place of listening and understanding, rather than making assumptions that you know what's good for that other person.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm. And thinking of sort of Gen Alpha's well-being and safety is like, I hate to use my nephew as an example, but thinking of him, a good example of like, peer pressure is always going to be an ever-present thing. And peer pressure was a thing certainly when I was young, obviously. And back in my time, which was, a grand total of 10 years ago at school, it was considered weird and nerdy to be like, I want to be a YouTuber. And now it's like, my nephew's just turned 10, and now he's like, he was weird because he was the last kid who didn't have a VR headset. And it's and it's the sort of standards are changing, and the pressure of like, adhering to these role models of YouTubers is very fascinating, those sort of parasocial relationships.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely spot on. And I think that's the point about just understanding the dynamics of his life are going to be totally different from the dynamics of yours, Josh. And like you said, you were still in school 10 years ago. So, we have to just make sure that we don't make assumptions, that we know what it looks like and feels like to be them, and that we keep open lines of communication, and that they can tell us what they need, and then it's our job to try and make sure that we can facilitate that in the right way with some boundaries and guardrails around it as best you can.
Yeah, the jump between Gen Z to Alpha is fascinating, and I'm very curious to what it's going to be between Alpha to Beta. Pardon the fact that they're called Beta, which is big enough. A big enough irony there.